Greetings, people of the internet. This is CardiX, and today is a Halloween video. I wanted to be sure that I actually got at least one of these themed videos out, and unfortunately it was a bit late. I've been working on that sketchbook so much, and I've just not really felt like doing other artwork, and it stinks because I was hoping the sketchbook would help me do artwork more. Does that make sense? Because like I did daily artwork for like a year recently, and I found that instead of draining me, it tended to help me feel even more creative. Like I had more ideas more often. So surprisingly, very rarely I actually struggled to figure out something to draw. More often than not, though, I just kind of sketched what I typically go to. Regardless, this idea was something I've been wanting to do for a while, and I figured since it was Halloween that it would be kind of perfect timing to just go ahead and do it. So the idea for this is the Draw This Again challenge with an old drawing that I did in 2013 of Kingdom Hearts character Sora wearing his Halloween outfit while also in the Nightmare Before Christmas world. The original drawing, I couldn't find it. I was going to pull it out and I was going to scan it into my computer because the old picture I had on DeviantArt was not terrible. Like the lighting was fine, but the picture wasn't the greatest. Excuse me, because the background was in sight, I guess. I remember drawing it. It was on my bed. I think it was cold or something. But it was in my old bedroom, and in my old bedroom, I often didn't leave my bed whenever it was kind of chilly, and my mom typically keeps the house kind of cold. Regardless, so the bed spread is in view, so just a warning, it's not the greatest picture. But it is it is at the end of this video because I couldn't find the original, like I said. If I do find it, I will possibly post it and then link to it in the bottom of the page, like in the description. If not, then I'll just link to the original post that I did years ago on DeviantArt. Anyway, so this is... I knew what I wanted. I knew that I wanted the lighting to be very dramatic because the original drawing I did with colored pencil, and I of course didn't know how to do colored pencil back then. So it's very flat, very grainy, kind of, and what's the word? There isn't really any shading. There's some hint of color for the light inside the pumpkin, but um, I didn't really know much about lighting and shading, and I've learned a lot. I realized I've learned a lot, specifically in the last year or two. I've learned a lot of color theory and shading tricks, and obviously digital art, because in 2013 I didn't have anything to do with digital art. I didn't even know it was an option. I was very clueless back then. Still kind of clueless now, but I know more things. So there's that. I know that by doing this digitally, it's not exactly the same as redoing it in my sketchbook, but oops, sorry, there's a cat here, and she's like clockwork. She appears when I'm trying to do audio or drawing. I was doing this yesterday, actually, and the cats were just taking turns trying to get attention from me. But yeah, what was I saying? The original doesn't have very great lighting and shading, and I did the texture in the background, and it took forever. Long time. I remember that specifically. And I remember some parts I liked and others I didn't. But here I just kind of gave a, what's the word? An indication, I guess, of the texture. It's very subtle though. I wanted the attention to be on Sora and not the detail. I also did a little bit of further distance background, but the original area doesn't really have that far of a distance thing. I also wanted to do stars like I think I did in the original, but I don't think that Halloween Town or whatever the world is called, I don't think it actually has stars. In all the pictures I found, there weren't any stars. It was just a dark sky. I also noticed I didn't color the pumpkin quite right, because I tend to work in very muted tones, I've noticed, and the pumpkin kind of showed forth, but with a um such a bright light inside, it became quickly obvious that the muted orange was not going to cut it. So eventually I played with the tonal correction and got the pumpkin to be a more saturated orange. And I'm glad I did that. Something just wasn't looking right, so I decided to attempt looking at some references to see what the colors would be like. I just kind of Googled pumpkin and then went to images. That's pretty much it. I noticed that the shading of the pumpkin was quite a bit more dramatic, as well as the saturation of the orange, and then there was the super brightness of the inside, of course. I do intend to play with lighting more often, and this is kind of an entry, a kind of gateway, I guess, into doing that, because I did really want this to be very dramatic, because usually I'm really shy about the contrast in the lighting. So I decided that I would try to make this as dark as possible while still keeping things decently easy to read. And I hope I succeeded in that. I still have a cat. She is just here, so if you hear her purring or if the mic gets booped, I am sorry for your ears being attacked. Oop, there we go. Yep, that happened. I noticed I've gotten a bit faster with doing artwork, but I also feel like because of that I don't polish things up as more as much as I should. I think it's because I don't want to make my videos too long, but I also don't want to cut out major steps. I notice a lot of videos that are short with longer pieces tend to cut out a bunch of steps. And the jump cuts happen in a very subtle way, so you have to be really paying attention to notice. And I kind of like that idea, but at the same time I don't. I just feel like I'm missing everything. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Another thing that I noticed about this outfit of Sora's is that it incorporates all the primary colors. And I believe that's kind of a hard thing to do, because his outfit has, of course, red. The red is pretty obvious in the wraps on his legs. But there's also yellow in both the crown on his chest as well as the little bit of details in the shoulder where it's kind of white, but there's also a little bit of a yellow. And then his belt is a very deep blue. And I find that very interesting because I believe his typical outfit has all the primary colors as well, and red is very obvious in his outfits, as while the other two colors are a lot more subtle. I find that very interesting because supposedly it's very hard to put all the primary colors into a design and keep them from looking out of place, I think. I heard that from somebody, I think. An artist probably more um experienced than I suppose. And I believe it's true because those three colors just kind of there's so much contrast between them that it's kind of hard to understand where you're supposed to be looking, which one is supposed to be the most eye-catching. But apparently, it's a lot easier than one can think because depending on the shade and the saturation of each color, it can be pretty easy. For example, Sora's outfit, the red on his legs, very, very obvious. Very, very contrasting with the black. However, the yellow is very subtly placed as kind of an afterthought on top of some whiter spots. And then the blue is very saturated in the reference I used. However, it was very close to black, so it didn't really take much attention from the dark base of the rest of his outfit. I just find that so interesting. Because I'm just the type of person who's always looking at new things and trying to discover new ways to make myself better. So, yeah. And by this point, I think I realized that it wasn't really going too well with the contrast. Like I was trying to put highlights on him so that the lighting was very evident from the pumpkin, but it didn't really come across very well, so then I realized that I probably should darken everything else so the highlights would come out. This is like one of the big things. One of the big concepts with artwork is contrast. One of the easiest ways to make a scene readable is learning how to play with lighting and form and shape and contrast. I sound like I know everything, but I promise you I don't. I'm learning. I'm learning everything, and then I just kind of regurgitate. I still have a cat. She's still here. She's just in the way. I'm trying to crane my neck so I can see the computer screen beyond her, which I'm doing nearly every day. I just remembered actually. Tomorrow is Halloween, and I have a doctor appointment, and I really don't want to go. It has nothing to do with it actually being Halloween, other than I like Halloween and I don't want to spend it with the doctor. I don't like my doctor that much. But I'm too lazy to try and find a new one. Regardless, I also wanted to just stay home, kind of, if I don't have to get groceries or something, and work on my sketchbook, because I'm probably not going to be caught up tomorrow. By tomorrow, I don't know. So I'm thinking that I'll probably postpone it. Another thing is I really like when the hair is highlighted, like a glow from light behind. Yep, there's that reveal of the original. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this and my endless rambling and cat booping my mic. Have a happy Halloween and let me know what you're doing tomorrow. Bye!